NewsNation is checking things out at three busy border sectors this morning: the Tucson sector, the El Paso sector, and the Del Rio sector. NewsNation's Ali Bradley joining us live from Mexico with more and what we're seeing at the border now that Trump is president-elect.
Yeah, we're just on the border with Mexico. We're in New Mexico right now. We just made it to Rodeo, and this is our second sector that we're entering into right now. We started last night in the Tucson sector in Arizona's busy area down in Cochise County, and they were seeing up to 10 pursuits in a single day at the height of this. Now, last night, things started to pick up again after they kind of saw things slow down a little. I just got the phone with the sheriff who said just this morning they were involved in a pursuit near our live shot where we met with you last, saying that they spiked that vehicle. So they are fully engaged still with the border issues seemingly ramping up. So what we experienced last night was pretty shocking and was a first for me. We were the only news crew there watching as sheriff's deputies were actually administering a search warrant. Guns drawn. We saw rifles out there. They were on the loudspeaker alerting anybody in that house that the police were there to issue that search warrant. So 9 people, 9 illegal immigrants were pulled from a so-called stash house that was behind that house. It was a detached garage. They were all from Mexico. 3 of them were women. 2 in the group were juveniles. Now, I want to kind of try to explain what this was like. Going inside of this area was smaller than what you would consider a one-car garage. 9 people were inside of that room. And the smell, if I can try to describe it, it was just putrid. It was intolerable. It smelled like urine in this very small, confined space. It's something, I mean, discarded clothing, food scattered around. It was conditions you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. So what is happening here? We were about 100 yards from the border wall. Illegal immigrants are jumping that wall in Naco. We know because we have seen it. We have documented it very heavily. And then they seemingly disappear. And what's happening there is they're running into these so-called stash houses. They're hiding out, and they're doing that via a pin drop through these smugglers that are helping them over the wall. So then those individuals get picked up from that stash house and transported to a transpo hub like Tucson or Phoenix. Congress saying right now that the cartel is a $13 billion a year industry, and law enforcement down here are saying that it's going to get exponentially harder for the cartel to make their money.
They're going to push hard right now, the cartels. They know they have to. They have a president coming in that's made it very clear, and based on his track record, he will secure this border. He'll declare it an emergency based on what we've had for the last 4 years, and which means it'll seal that border. So the cartels aren't stupid. It's a business. They're going to be pushing their dope through here, their illicit drugs, you name it, to include trafficking people, smuggling people.
Now, Marni, really interesting following the election to see the results coming out of the border communities, because the president-elect took 14 out of 18 border communities, flipping a lot of them, the majority of them. Some of those counties have been blue since the 1890s. So some perspective on Latino voters, getting about 55% of the vote, nearly doubling his numbers from 2020. So it just shows you how impactful the border crisis has been. What we've been covering for the last 3.5 years has absolutely had an impact on these border communities and these individuals who went out and vote and made a change, obviously, Marni.
Yeah, they live it every day. They're on the front lines. Arizona, Ali, passed a law giving power to local law enforcement to act as immigration officials. How will this work?
Yeah, really interesting there. Controversial bill, but again, it was passed by the people. The people spoke here. So this was a law that was very similar to one that was on the books in 2010. It was considered a show me your papers law. So what this bill is going to do is going to allow local law enforcement, like what we saw last night, those sheriff's deputies would actually be able to arrest those illegal immigrants because they could prove that they crossed the border illegally. So they can actually have immigration authority. Now, it is concerning for the sheriff, who tells me that they don't really know how this is going to work. They don't have additional resources being allocated. They do not have funding allocated for this in this legislation. So he said they need help from the governor. They need to work with the state on this because this is a state legislation. Now, interesting too here, Marni, is the president-elect is also talking about with the mass deportations that he will be leaning very heavily on local law enforcement, saying the locals are the ones who know who all these people are that don't want to be found, right? So he's going to be leaning on them. Sheriff Daniels once again saying, we have some concerns with that. We don't know what that's going to look like. What's the expectation? Where's the funding? Where are the resources? So a lot of questions here of how this is all going to roll out and play out. So we're getting back on the road here. We are en route to Santa Teresa, New Mexico. It is a spot that we have seen the cartel exploit. Every time we're down there, we see them waving at us on the bluff, sending people down right in front of our cameras. So we'll see if they're operating business as usual or if things have shifted a little bit in that sector. That's the El Paso sector. We'll be over there, Marni.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.